Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Fratsketball podcast. I think this is episode 25. I'm here with my awesome co host, Matt, and I'm your host, Kieran. Today, we are talking about a couple different things, and let's just get straight into it. So, first thing I kind of wanted to talk about, Matt, is as you probably know, the Celtics are having a pretty dominant season this year. They are currently 66 and 16 with a just insane net rating of plus 11.2. And I wanted to take a look at some of the teams throughout NBA history, just back to the 1976 NBA ABA merger. What teams have also had just a crazy high net rating, and just taking a look at that. So, number 10 for the, I'm just going to run through the teams. At number 10, it's the 2009 Cavaliers, the 2015 Warriors, the 2016 Warriors, the 1992 Bulls, not this year's Celtics, the 2008 Celtics, the 2016 Spurs, this year's Celtics, the 2017 Warriors. So the Warriors are on here three times, and so are the Bulls. The Bulls come up here at the number 2 and the 1 spot. So the 97 Bulls and the 96 Bulls. And some of these times, like for example in 1996 and 1997, there were only 29 teams in the league. That's why I didn't want to go so far back, because I mean it's easy to be first in net rating when there's like 7 teams in the league. But I mean, the Celtics, although they don't have they're not going to win 70 games this year. They haven't won 66 and 16. They're on track to go 66 and 16. So that's not their current record, but they're probably going to finish around that. And typically these teams win 67, 68, 69, 70. And in the case of the Bulls and the Warriors, of course, 72 and 73 games. This year's Celtics, I think they're slept on as being like one of the most dominant regular season teams of all time. And they're actually only one of a very few select teams to be in the top 2 in defensive rating and offensive rating. So they're second in defense and first in offense, making them the best offense just ever. If you had to give me maybe a top 3, maybe top 5 of these kind of 10 teams that I laid out, basically the best teams of all time in the regular season at least, where would you put those teams at?
So for my list for the greatest teams of all time, I think at 1 you do have to put the 96 Bulls. I think it's pretty undisputed, having the number 1 ranked offense and number 1 ranked defense. And on top of that, being one of 2 teams in NBA history to win 70 games or more. Yeah, I think they're kind of an undisputed one. I do think that the Warriors 73 and 9 season, I know it was affected. You don't get the ring, whatever. But regular season wise, that's what you said, right? Just strictly regular
Mm-hmm.
season. Yeah,
Strictly regular season.
yeah. I got to put the Warriors at 2, having the best record in NBA history. Just with their net rating being um, sorry about that. With their net rating not being the first overall in the league, which I would probably assume is either the Cavs or the Rockets that year,
That
and
was
their
the
defense.
Spurs.
The
That was the Spurs,
Spurs.
actually. Hmm.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. And then their defensive rating being 5th. I don't know. I'm just not as impressed. And just considering how different the game was back in the 90s versus how different it is now, I feel like the 2015, 2016 season was kind of the turning point, or one of the turning points around when the league started to turn to a 3-point and shooting heavy league. So I would go with the 2015, 2016 Warriors at my 2. My number 3, who would I have? I think what I would go with, honestly, I'll probably go with the 96, 97 Bulls. Um, I'm gonna go with that. Just kind of caps off MJ's, and I know it's regular season, but still 69 wins, just being another win away from 70 wins. That's very, very, very impressive. And I know I said it earlier, but just how different the game was, stuff like that. So I'm gonna put the 96 and 97 Bulls at 3. Um, Number 4. I'm kind of having a toss up between this 2015, 2016 Spurs and this year's Celtics. Um, I think, yeah, this year's Celtics, we are definitely underappreciating what we're seeing. I said this in our last episode and I think some other time, but we're witnessing five all-stars that are playing on the same team. I know Kristaps, Drew, and Derek White were not elected to the all-star team this year, but they've been all-stars in the past and they're still amazing players. Drew Holiday and Derek White, I would be shocked if they weren't on an all-defensive team this year. And I would be a little bit surprised if Jason Tatum wasn't on an all NBA team, and maybe even Jaylen Brown, just considering all the injuries and stuff that have happened in the East with like Tyrese Halliburton and Donovan Mitchell and stuff like that. So I'm gonna have to say probably the 2023, 2024 Celtics. And then at my 5 seed, I'll put the 2025, 2016 Spurs. So
Yeah,
those
that
are
Spurs team, that's a good list. That's a good list. That Spurs team really surprised me because, as I was talking to you before this podcast, they are the only team in NBA history to only lose one game at home uh, in a season. So they went 40-1 that season at home. That's just completely ridiculous. Which means they went 26-14 away, which is also crazy. So they went 67-15. They had the number 4 offense, the number 1 defense in the league, less than 100 points allowed. And they actually had a better net rating than the Warriors, like you said, which they are projected to win probably even more games. Like they are a team that could have won 70 plus games if the Warriors weren't there that year. So that's kind of one of those years where there's two insanely dominant teams, both in the West as well. So they both have to play each other, I think three times.
Yeah.
So that brings down the win totals for both of them. And then also having to play the Cavs, I suppose. There's some pretty good teams that year. And the 2016 Warriors, they were able to win 73 games, yes. I think there is another team from that Warriors dynasty that I think just legitimately was better. I think the 2017 Warriors, although they won 6 less games, I think just overall it was a better team. And they did have a better net rating, which, yes, okay, whatever. They were the number 1 offense, the number 2 defense, as opposed to the number 5 defense. And overall, I think if you just shuffle the cards a little more, I think this version of the Warriors could have won like 75 games, especially if they would have been pushing full throttle through the whole season, because they weren't going 100%, especially, in the kind of this middle slug of the season, and they already knew who they were. The 2016 Spurs, they were trying to prove that they were legitimate, like back-to-back contenders, because, Steph won kind of a controversial MVP in 2015. The Warriors won that championship, but it wasn't really looked at as like a super dominant run. It was kind of looked at as a fluke, which, I mean, it's kind of hard to fluke a championship, but they were trying to show that they were legit. And they sure did in 2017. Obviously, they did add Kevin Durant to the lineup, so that makes them even better. And it makes me believe that I think the 2017 Warriors are a better team. So I'm going to keep the 96 Bulls at number 1. I mean, they just had a plus 13.4 net rating. Like, they were beating teams on an average night by 13.4 points. Right below that net rating is plus 12 for the Bulls the year after. But I'm going to keep the 96 Bulls at 1. I'm going to put the 2017 Warriors at 2. The 2016 Warriors and the 97 Bulls are kind of a toss-up for me. I'll put the 2016 Warriors at 3 and the 97 Bulls at 4. At number 5, I think I'm going to put this year's Celtics. They have been just incredibly dominant, blowing out teams, and they haven't had like an insanely good record against top teams in the league. I believe they're only 7-7 against the top 8 teams, but that's still pretty good. Only, I think, like 5 teams are 500 against the top 8 teams in the league. Number 1 is actually the Thunder. They have a positive record against the top 8 teams, so that's really kind of a good indicator for them. That's my top 5 for that, and yeah, I kind of just wanted to go over that and display. And also, these teams are since the 1996 NBA ABA merger. So before that, there was only like 8 teams, and I didn't really want to count that. Anything else you have on that, Matt?
Yeah, I kind of just like touched base on it earlier, but I just kind of wanted to see where you sat on it. But I guess in a sense, you putting this year's Celtics at your 5 spot is the greatest regular season team of all time kind of answered my question. But it was, yeah, do you think that we kind of are taking this year's Celtics team for granted and what we are really witnessing? And we're sitting here, we're slandering Jason Tatum, we're slandering Jaylen Brown, stuff like that. So, like, what are your thoughts on that? Where do you sit on that?
Yeah, I think we definitely are taking it for granted a little bit, and I think part of that is because we've seen the Celtics be super successful in the regular season before, not to this level, but for sure, just been super successful, but then kind of, I suppose, folding in the playoffs and not performing as well as expected in the playoffs. So I think there's just kind of a tax on that. People are tired of it. And then also, people expected them to be really good. Maybe not this good, but people expected them probably to be the only team that might win 60 games this season. They added a Drew Holiday. Derek White got better. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, probably just as good as they were last year. They added Kristaps Porzingis. So they're really, really, really good, and it's not like it came out of nowhere. And I think we've done this before with the Warriors in the past, not appreciating how good they were at the time because people just hated them. And I think a lot of people, I mean, myself included, being a Bucks fan, it's kind of easy to hate the Celtics, you know. Um, but I mean, we can knock on Jason Tatum for not being a top 10 player in the NBA. I don't really know. He's a borderline top 10 player for me. He's still insanely good. He's still the best player on the best team. But it's not a knock on the team, or it's not a knock on him that he's not a top 10 player. It's actually kind of a compliment. They don't need to have like one of the best top, 5 players in the NBA to be super successful. They have an extremely well-rounded roster. And I think there's only been, I think, 6 teams in NBA history. I wanted to kind of go through this as well, that have had 4 All-Stars in the season. This year there was only 2 for the Celtics, but shuffle the cards another way, there could have been 4 because Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, and Drew Holiday, in my opinion, all had all-star caliber seasons. Maybe not Drew Holiday; he kind of had a down year, but any 2 of those guys could have made it. So 2006, the Detroit Pistons, they had Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, Chauncey Billups, and Rip Hamilton. The 1999 Lakers had Kobe Bryant, Nick Van Exel, Shaquille O'Neal, Eddie Jones. The 75 Celtics had John Havlicek, Dave Cowens, JoJo White, Paul Silas. I don't recognize JoJo White, but I recognize the other 3. The 2011 Celtics, not 2008 Celtics, so that's Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Rajon Rondo, obviously. The 1983 76ers, that is Julius Erving, Moses Malone, Maurice Cheeks, and Andrew Toney. And then the 62 Celtics, which is Tom Heinsohn, Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, and Sam Jones. So I think the Celtics, this year's Celtics, are kind of on par with a lot of those teams and even better than them in some respects because their number 5 and number 6 legitimately is better than when I was talking about the 2008 Celtics. Like Kendrick Perkins was the starting center for the 2008 Celtics. Like that's a big drop off for your center position. And the Celtics don't have a guy like that in their starting lineup. I think Al Horford this year is way better than Kendrick Perkins was.
For sure.
Yeah,
For
Kendrick
sure.
Perkins was in 2008. So, yeah.
Real quick, I could be tripping, but was there not a year that Steph, Clay, Draymond, and KD all made the All-Star team? I swear there
Oh
was.
shoot, it's
I
not on this list. I
swear
just
there was.
quickly look up this list, but yeah, now that you say that, I think it was 2018 or 2019. Yeah,
Yeah,
2018 was the
yeah,
Warriors. So that's the other team. That's
yeah.
7.
I think that's right. Yeah. Not knocking on you. I just figured that something wasn't right because I remembered I was like, there was an argument that like all 4 of them could have been like starting or something like that, or like it was close or something like that. But anyways, yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to ask you about the Celtics. And real quick, just something else before we move on to the next topic. While you were talking, it kind of got me thinking. So, like, this has been a topic of discussion over the past couple of weeks, and it's been is the Jason Tatum a top 10 player? And
Hmm.
a lot of people swing either way on it. But me and you, it kind of seems like we're both fringe on the Jason Tatum thing.
Yeah.
And how many teams really, if you think about it, that have had as much success as the Celtics have had, don't have a top 10 player? Because if I'm just looking at this list, based on the net rating and stuff that we just covered, the 96 Bulls had MJ, the 97
Yep.
Bulls had MJ, the
Hmm.
2017 Warriors had Clay, Steph, Draymond, who at the time, hate, whether you love or hate it, are all top 20 players in the NBA. The 2014 Celtics, or the 2024 Celtics, that's a big outlier. The 2016 Spurs had, that was Kawhi, Parker, and Duncan's last year, right? And Manu's last
Um,
year.
I don't know if they all retired in the same year. I think Parker stuck around for a little bit longer because he played
Yeah,
his last year on the Hornets. But I know
all
that
as
Tim Duncan
together
did
as a
retire in
team.
2016.
Yeah,
Yeah.
altogether as a
Yeah, yeah,
team, I
yeah.
should say. The 2018 Celtics, or whoa, the 2008 Celtics. They had Kevin Garnett.
Kevin Garnett
The
definitely top 10 player that year for sure.
Yeah, the 92 Bulls, MJ, the 2016 Warriors, Steph, the 2015 Warriors, Steph, the '09 Cavs, LeBron. So like, I think that we really are taking this Boston Celtics team for granted and how good they really are. And I think something that might be going under the rug a little bit is maybe this is a new way to form a team. Get somebody that is a fringe top 10 player or build around somebody who's a fringe top 10 player. Like maybe to continue this argument, maybe we'll say I hate to say this because this is my team, but the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards is in that 12 to 15 discussion right now, somewhere
Hmm.
around there for a majority of players. So, what happens if the Wolves can go out and say, hit on another point guard or something like that, or put a bunch of above average players around an Anthony Edwards? Because that could that like maybe be the key or something like that? Is this possibly a new way to like build a roster? Just get your five guys and develop bench players or something like that. Just kind of thinking out loud here right now. I don't necessarily think it would be the worst, and I think maybe it's something to look forward to. Like your sport's always evolving. If you don't evolve with it, it's gonna catch up to you and stuff like that. Like in the NFL right now, like the key to success is you got to have two good receivers, unless your name is Patrick Mahomes. But all the good teams got two receivers. You evolve with the game, and maybe that's a new trend in the NBA that we're going to see here in the upcoming future.
I think you're definitely onto something. There's been a recent trend with super teams, and then also a recent trend with super teams not panning out very well. And I don't really think you can call the Celtics a super team in the traditional sense where they have two or three like superstars. They don't have another guy on, or even really close to Jason Tatum's level on the team. I think I would say that, but the Celtics have like six top like 100 players in the NBA. I think Al Horford, I think Drew Holiday, Derek White, Chris Porzingis. These are all guys that are top 100, maybe even top 75 if you want to kick Al Horford out of that. They got probably five top 75 or maybe even five top 50 guys in
Yeah,
the
you can make the
league
argument 50. Yeah,
for sure. And then once you get down to their bench, they're not slacking in the bench department either. They're not like the deepest team in the league, but they have a guy like Peyton Pritchard and Luke Cornett that can, show up in the regular season. I don't know how many minutes they're going to get in the finals. I think the Celtics are probably going to make the finals. But their rotation's probably going to get a little shorter, get down to maybe 8, 6, 7 guys instead of maybe more like a 9 and 10 rotation. But I don't think that's an awful thing because they have guys that can go out there and run. But I think you're right in a lot of respects that it's much better to have a well-balanced team. I think it's super hard to make a team like that. I think this is kind of just a dream situation where the Celtics were able to kind of just scam the league into getting these players and just shipping out players at the right time and taking advantage of Drew Holiday being available and not rushing to go get Damian Lillard and just being patient and developing their guys well. And I think it's just a huge credit to the Celtics organization in putting together such a well-rounded roster. And but now the expectation is that they do make the finals, and the expectation is almost that like unless they basically face Denver, they could probably get a bye if they lose to Denver. But if they face really anyone else in the finals, they're going to be favored to win and pretty heavily favored, honestly. And the way things are looking right now, it's looking like it is going to be. We didn't see the Nuggets just falter to the Mavericks, and I'm sure you have some stuff to talk about that in just a minute here. But I mean, it's looking like a Nuggets Celtics rivalry in the finals. The Clippers are kind of slipping. The Wolves, obviously, the cat injury. The Thunder are definitely going to be dangerous, but there's still concerns about their rebounding. There's still concerns about their youth and things like that. But yeah, anything else we have on that?
no, I don't think I have anything else on that. I see right here on your note that you got something else to cover, and that is going to be regarding the NBA Finals. So I'll let you take that over real quick.
That is a good transition. I should have just went straight into that, but you set me up for this. And as some of you may have heard, a couple of weeks ago, there was just talk of Phil Jackson and his kind of rule that championship contending teams basically need to win 40 games before they lose 20. So it's the 40-20 rule. And I was like, I should take a look at NBA history and see how valid this is. As you go back really, really far in NBA history, it doesn't really count as much. But I went back to just the last 44 NBA championships. Before that, stuff just kind of gets weird, where there's teams that are like that won like 44 games that win the championship, and that's just not modern basketball. So I want to just not go back super far. So last 44 championships, 39 out of those 44 teams won 40 games before they lost 20. Okay? So basically, like 90% of these teams, a little bit less than 90% of these teams, won 40 before the last 20. The last team to do it was the 2021 Bucks. I have an explanation for this. They benefited from the Lakers and the Heat being exhausted from the shortest offseason in not only NBA history, but professional sports history, because the Lakers played the finals like incredibly late, and then they had to start the regular season. I don't know how many months after, but it wasn't long certainly. And the Lakers were just exhausted, and same with the Heat, I suppose. So the Bucks really took advantage of that, not having to face the Lakers in the finals, but getting to face the Suns, who just ran through a bunch of kind of injured teams. It's kind of same with the Bucks. They took out the Heat in the first round, who destroyed them the year before, but were tired from not really having much of an offseason. 2006 Heat. So this is also a really controversial NBA Finals because Dwayne Wade got to shoot a lot of free throws, because there's a lot of accusations of this being a rigged finals versus the Dallas Mavericks. So the Heat closed them out in 6, and they went 30-20 in their first 50 games, and then went on a crazy winning streak. So they really almost won 40 games before they lost 20. They were kind of right on the cusp. 2004 Pistons, they were really not who they were until they acquired Rasheed Wallace after the trade deadline. So they went 34-22 before acquiring Rasheed Wallace, and then they finished the year 20-6 with him in the lineup. So they were just a completely different team after they acquired him. So that one's also kind of an asterisk. The 1999 Spurs, they went 37-13, so there's only 50 games this season. They didn't really have a chance to win 40 before they lost 20, and they probably would have. And then the 1995 Rockets, they beat a young Magic team in the finals, and they did it without Jordan in the NBA. So it's very conceivable that a kind of worse team wins the NBA finals. And those are some pretty major exceptions, I'd say. And it's going to be tough for a team outside of these 4 teams that I'm about to mention to win the finals. There's 3 in the West and 1 in the East. The one in the East, you can probably guess, is the Celtics, who won 40 games before they lost 20. The Nuggets, the Wolves, and the Thunder. I think it's pretty easy to say that the Wolves maybe are kind of teetering out of that because of the Karl Anthony Towns injury. So that really kind of narrows it down to 3 teams that I could legitimately see, or Phil Jackson could legitimately see winning the title this year, and that's the Nuggets, the Celtics, and the Thunder. So what are your thoughts on that? How valid do you think it is, et cetera, et cetera?
So yeah, I'm super big on the 40-20 rule, and I think that is definitely a way to consider, and what we should, I think, consider a team as elite, or how we should define an elite team in the future. And I feel like we should start to use this more in like the media and
Mm-hmm.
analysis and stuff like that. But what do I know? I'm just a 20-year-old kid. But anyways, yeah, I would have to say that my favorite right now is probably the Celtics. If it's not, I understand just because of the Denver Nuggets, but if it's not one of those two, I don't really know how much I'm gonna listen to your argument, to be honest with you. I'm not big on the Thunder just because of the sole reason they are super young. I thought the Gordon Hayward trade would help build them a lot more. Maybe it will come playoff time, but as of now, Gordon Hayward has not done anything for the Thunder. He's just been a very below average player, worse than he was in Charlotte. And I know, granted, it's a different situation and he's not getting as many minutes, and you have Shea taking how many shots and free throws a game. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, right now I gotta say my favorite's the Celtics. And then at this point, if you don't think it's gonna be like a Nuggets Celtics or like a Thunder Celtics NBA Finals, I'd be a little bit shocked. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
super big on the 40-20 rule, and I think yeah, it's a super valid way to see what teams are gonna be a potential champion.
And I think you had something to talk about in terms of stuff that happened today. Some buzzer beaters.
Yeah, real quick. When was the last time in NBA history we had 2 buzzer beaters when the clock hit triple zeros while the ball was in the air in the same day? I don't know if that's ever happened in the same day, to be honest. I didn't pull up a stat or anything for this, but it was just came to my mind before we were filming. But today, Bam Adebayo hit like a 31-foot three or something to close out the game. It was a great shot. And then Kyrie Irving came in clutch and hit a little hook shot over Jokic from the free throw line with his offhand. Um, Huge for me because I'm a Wolves fan. I love to see it. Great shot from Kyrie. But yeah, I just want to talk about that real quick. Kyrie Irving shot specifically. What a difficult shot that was. You said that you were watching it live. I personally wasn't, but I saw a bunch of the highlights everywhere. I was tuned into another game at the time, college game, but yeah, what a shot from Kyrie. It's not very often you see hook shots in the NBA anymore, and especially from a guard and at that far. Kind of a circus shot to say the least, but definitely was awesome to see.
Yeah, and also the storyline with these shots and these buzzer beaters is right beforehand. I believe it was it was Jamal Murray for the Nuggets who took a shot. It was pretty open.
Yeah.
They had the ball. I think the shot clock was just like half a second behind the game clock, so he probably would have been able to, maybe if he got a 3-point shot off in the last couple tenths of a second, the buzzer would have expired. And I think the idea is take a shot. If it's good, just take it, even if there's 2 or 3 seconds left. And Jamal Murray lost his defender, and he was 6, 7 feet away from the basket. He took that shot, he missed it, and there was a timeout obviously called by the Mavericks. And there was 2.8 seconds left on the clock. And that's about as good as you can hope for to get a shot off to try to win the game. Obviously, now looking back in hindsight, it seems like they maybe should have tried to let the clock expire so they could go to overtime instead of letting the Mavericks have a chance to win. But hindsight is 2020. In 90% of circumstances, the Mavericks are not going to hit a circus shot like that. So, I mean, that was an incredible shot. Getting just around, I think it was Jokic.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving goes up with the left hand past the free throw line. It does I don't even know if it was a hook shot. It was just like a running, like kind of just like throw it up there, Hail
A
Mary.
prayer, an absolute prayer. Yeah, it was nuts, man.
Yeah, a prayer is a perfect summary of it. And then the other game, Pistons and Heat, Cade Cunningham took I'd say a little bit more ill-advised shot with 10 seconds remaining on the clock over the Heat. The Bam Adebayo, who shoots, we were talking about this before the show, 23% from three this year, which is one of the better marks of his career, actually. Shoots the only attempt that he had from three that game and just sinks it. So, some impressive showings.
Yeah, that's definitely the look if you were the Pistons too. But sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles, and it is what it is. But yeah, I think that kind of covers everything that we had today. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning into another episode. Appreciate you guys watching as always, and we will catch you in the next one.
Peace.